I was like, maybe it's time to actually give Blender compositing a shot. And today, at both my studios, we've switched both pipelines over almost entirely to Blender compositing because it's that good. The flexibility of Blender that I've felt working in it has outclassed any other software I've used. Hello, my name is Wyatt Hall. This is Why the Compositor is the Future of NPR. But if you don't do NPR, please stay, because I promise there will be some kind of takeaway for you here. I'm also the director of Winterstellar Studios, and I am also the lead compositor at Dylan Goose Studios. Let's jump into it. The last time I stood before you guys, you may have seen this, making stylized visuals. I gave a talk in 2024. Lots of really good techniques, all about like anime, making stylized projects, but a lot of it was all in-engine stuff. I always felt like I left out the most important part, in my opinion, which is compositing. I'm here to make amends for that today. Yeah, I always felt bad leaving that out of that talk. I went over it a little bit, but the reason is because back then, I was using After Effects still. And it didn't feel right to come to Blender conference and start talking about After Effects. So, kept using After Effects. And then last year at SIGGRAPH, I met up with Francesco, and I was waffling on about, I wish I could use Blender's Compositor, but I just can't, And he basically looked me in the eye and was like, well, why can't you? Yeah, we can do that. We have those features. We're being updated right now. And I wanted to come back and instinctively be like, but you don't have this feature, and it's slow, and I just like, it's not intuitive yet or something, but I stopped myself because I realized that I didn't actually know. I hadn't been using it. I hadn't really given it a shot, so I wasn't actually sure. So I left, and I was like, maybe it's time to actually give Blender compositing a shot. And today, at both my studios, we've switched both pipelines over almost entirely to Blender compositing because it's that good. If you told me back then that Blender is going to be the best parts of After Effects and Nuke put together, I would not have believed you. But I'm going to try to convince you of it. So what is compositing? Why am I loving it so much? Why am I so worked up over it? Why is it essential? As a refresher, real quick, just to show you like why we need this for our pipelines, let's look at some before and afters. These are real production renders of real productions. So this is the before, and then we go to this. And then let's say we have a shot like this, and then it looks like this after compositing. And then another one, and then it looks like this. So compositing really is essential to getting the looks that we're going for. What are some of the things that we're doing to these shots that achieve our look, that take it that step further towards a cinematic look? Let's go over some of our most common things that we do to just about every shot. We'll do lighting with masking and gradients. We'll do 2D style rim lighting. I don't know if you can see it really well, but it's there. We'll do artistic color grading. We'll do depth of field, all in compositing. We'll do a lot of compositing of 2D effects or stock footage and things like that. We'll do glows, tons of glows happen in compositing. We'll do lens flares, different from glows, but very similar. And then, of course, the sweet stuff at the very end, lens distortions, grains, halation, the good stuff. However, all that seems pretty self-explanatory. And I want to get into a little bit more of the experimental stuff. Some of the stuff that's like the X factor that made us be like, wow, okay, yeah, this is game-changing maybe for Blender. So at Winterstellar, we're doing some experiments using the Viewport Compositor to work on compositing as early as the lookdev stage. So by dropping the characters into the environments, just before any animation's done necessarily, we're able to create a composition node group for each character that could be fine-tunedly detailed to a very high degree. And that node group then, once we've finalized the look and we've unified the look of a very cel-shaded character with a very painterly environment, then that node group can get linked into all of our shot files and adjusted with exposed parameters for shot comp adjustments. In this example, really all I'm doing is taking the bright parts of the environment behind her and just creating a little bit of light wrap around them so that the light blends nicely with the character. Another thing we found out is that shader to RGB actually kills indirect lighting. Now, to be fair, when we're working with cel-shaded characters, you really don't need to worry about indirect lighting all that much. But I was feeling experimental. I was like, you know what? The sky's the limit here. I'm compositing in Blender. And yes, so shader to RGB, if you're using that on a principled BSDF in Eevee, it will kill the indirect lighting. And you can see there's kind of a seam now, you know, on her neck, and it's like darker. There's that big shadow there. Don't particularly need it, but by rendering the character out as just a principled pass and moving all of the base colors, textures, and everything else through to the compositor in AOVs, I'm able to take the diffuse and the indirect pass, blur them a bunch so that we're getting the suggestion of lighting and not exactly the proof of it, because remember, we're going after a 2D style look, not a purely 3D look, and then mix those in with full control of how they are mixed in to the textures and the lighting, which gives us some very nice kind of soft lighting on the character that doesn't look like 3D lighting, but does work with our cel shading. All of this, of course, is done in very close communication with our art director and a close eye on the concept art, which we treat not just as inspiration, but also as a style guide right down to the brush strokes as much as possible. And so here's what the final result looks like. Which is pretty close. I'm pretty proud of that one. So at Dylan Goo, we experiment in very similar but different ways. To start off, we don't typically composite on live 3D like we did in that Winterstellar project. Instead, we're rendering everything out to EXRs, bringing them back into Blender. However, that's like, it's really, really nice because feedback is actually faster, because when you have a character or a scene with a bunch of view layers, now you don't have to wait for a render for all of those view layers to calculate and everything for you to see your whole scene put together. It's all as footage, and you see it as fast as the footage can load. What isn't so good is playback, but I have another little secret thing that I'm going to talk about later that completely remedies that issue. But that doesn't mean that we're completely divorced from the flexibility of switching between 3D and 2D spaces on the fly. We can link in the cameras and even some basic animation from the animation scenes into our compositing scene as reference, as perfect 3D camera tracking. And this is really handy because now, of course, we have all of our render passes in the EXRs, but we also have perfect camera reference. So I have a quick little video right here. And I'm just going to, let's say I wanted to add God rays to this scene, right? I'd need like some kind, but it has to be painterly, so it has to be an image texture, obviously. Well, I have the camera right there, so I don't have to worry about tracking this asset in at all. Once I bounce that out to its own render layer pass, in the shot comps, I can mask it against the depth passes of the characters and use whatever blending mode I want to blend it back into the scene. So here I am creating the depth map off the characters and then putting it back in, and then as soon as it's rendered, it looks like this. Wow. And you just set keyframes on the nodes as you need for opacity and stuff like that. This helps remove barriers between 3D and the comp, so that despite working with pre-rendered EXRs, you're never unable to make an improving change. Now the real fun stuff, workflow speed. In both cases, we've noticed that the workflow speed of compositing in Blender has dramatically reduced our idle time. I ran the numbers, guys, because I wanted to know for sure, is this actually faster in Blender than After Effects? So I took one very simple shot, one very simple effect. The only thing I'm calculating here, same shot between After Effects and Blender, looks the same. In After Effects, all I'm compositing here, by the way, is the depth of field bokeh. That's it. That's the only thing we're calculating. After Effects takes 613 milliseconds to calculate that bokeh. Blender does it in 109. And the majority of that 109 is just loading the footage. And that's with GPU on. So it's GPU accelerated. But like that's a 6 times increase. And that kind of adds up. The more nodes that you're, and the bigger, the heavier effects you're putting into a scene, it's going to add up. Circles for emphasis. These productions have been really big experiments for us to see if Blender Comp is really worth it. And the questions I've been asking myself the whole time from the get-go are, what have I lost? What have I gained? Is this better than leaving for a more specialized program? And does it actually look better? Well, I've got some answers. I think for that first one, After Effects, Nuke, even Fusion, they still offer a much wider variety of tools that by and large are easier to use at the artist level. However, with just a little bit of elbow grease, I was able to recreate all of my most used effects from After Effects with nodes in Blender. And now we, as a studio, control that effect. And we can constantly iterate on it and improve it for our specific needs, which allows us to have way greater control over the final images that we're getting and actually achieve the looks that we want. Absolutely, I think this is highlighted by our ability to bridge the gap more between our animation and our compositing workflows. Living in the same program is what allows us to bring animation back into our compositing scene. And finally, does it look better? This is super subjective. So I still think that it does look better, but we still have some ways to go. And I have a case in point about this, because the flexibility of Blender that I've felt working in it has outclassed any other software I've used. And here is my case in point. I've always wanted lens flares that have a really hand-painted look, but that still feel like actual lens flares. So my art director and I are chasing after a very kind of impressionistic style. And fortunately, shout out to CG Boost. They, years ago, almost a decade ago, they created the lens flare system, which it's all based off of texture cards. The only thing it was missing was the ability for it to be automatically tracked into the scene. You had to manually animate it with X and Y values. So I just created a screen space node, a screen space coordinate node, which would take a mask that was literally just a little dot from an object bounced to an AOV on alpha. It would find the median pixel in there on whatever was the average pixel coordinate in there. And then with that, bounce it out as an X and Y value to the lens flare system so that it would automatically know where it needs to be, and I don't have to touch a motion tracker at all because I hate motion tracking. So that's super cool. But the really, really cool part about it is we could paint all these cool lens objects. These are all hand painted, just us being yeah, it needs to kind of have a kind of thing, It needs to be textured and it needs to feel kind of tactile. And then it all gets automatically animated like an actual lens flare. So even with that, there's still so many more gifts that the devs have in store for us. And as someone who's been glued to the updates for a couple years now, I want to share some of my excitement with you. So first of all, we have this huge problem at our studio that all our renders look like this, completely anti-aliased. And your renders can look like this too if you just go into the film property settings and you turn the filter size all the way down to 0. That basically completely eliminates any anti-aliasing that we have going on. And of course we can fix this if we just add an anti-aliasing node in the compositor. However, this anti-aliasing node and the filter size are completely different algorithms, and they look completely different. And to prove it to you, we'll take the render on the side and the viewport on that side, and if we slap an anti-aliasing node on it, now okay, it looks better, but it does not look anywhere near the level of detail that we have from the actual filter size anti-aliasing. And I'm gonna circle it right here. Why is there's he has a brick on his eye, but over here we have actual real circles in there that we can see that he has 2 highlights instead of just 1 block. So we're losing detail here. This is a problem. How are they going to solve this? Well, they're just gonna composite before the anti-aliasing runs. So it's a complete non-issue. And this is just one, scratching the surface of how the compositor is going to become more integrated with the render engines. We're going to be looking at object and material compositing with the Multistage compositor. We're going to have object normals directly available in the compositor. We're going to have light vectors in the compositor. We're going to have camera info, all of this accessible. Screen space coordinates directly in. We're going to have comp tree stacking. We're going to have comp tree asset linking, and all of that is super cool. But if you look at these two specifically, you'll see that that's really all you need in order to make a shader. So who cares about render engines anymore? You can just do your shading in the compositor if you wanted to. And I'd be remiss not to mention the sequence compositor. But I was not ready for how much of a game changer this could be. Because when I realized that you can apply any comp tree, even if you're loading footage as nodes into the comp tree, you can just slap that on a sequence strip, and then you unlock this like layered stacking workflow that we're used to from After Effects. And you can take advantage of the prefetch that's built into the sequencer, so you can get pixel perfect, frame perfect real-time playback, like preloaded. I think I uninstalled After Effects right then. And so here's like a little actual thing. So I have this shot. I need to animate in that starburst behind her. I needed to come in, so just slap a sequence node on there. It now has its own self-contained sequence compositing node. I'm just going to make a little mask right here. Apply that on top, and then invert it so that I have a invert it. So there we go. I inverted it finally. And then set a keyframe, scrub forward a little bit, set another keyframe, and then this is what it looks like. And that's playing in the viewport, just in the sequencer with prefetch. I haven't rendered anything. That was like real time. And of course, since all of this is running in the compositor, it doesn't matter if you're running Eevee or cycles, the comp trees will look the same on anything. So all of this combines to mean that the compositor is not only going to be more pervasive, not only in Blender, but also throughout the production process, where it's going to become a creative extension to the shading process for us, especially with our NPR styles. And we're going to unlock more artistic effects and more artistic control. Things that would be previously too expensive or just impractical to do in actual 3D space now can be achieved in the compositor. And I'm thinking about line art. I'm thinking about painterly effects. Seriously, look into compositor line art. It might be the future. Why do it this way? Personally, I think, and especially speaking towards creating, like emulating 2D styles, there comes a point where you have to stop looking at things in 3 dimensions. Remove that third dimension distraction from yourself. Sit down, look at your image for what it is, so you can figure out how best to improve it. Thank you for listening.